Soften up the mess, drop it in the water, let the daughter find her image with the rest. She'll be learning how to breathe, spinning through identity, reveal another pretty little scheme. Save her mind, hold her hand.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of DiscovHER. On today's episode, we have a very special guest, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Sabina. Yeah, my name is Sabina.
So, how do we meet? I think it was like a social media thing.
Yeah. And then also kind of like having mutual friends.
Yeah.
And then like realizing we went to Wayne State and things like that. But yeah, social media for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then I remember you posted your trainer. I have been looking for one. And her name's India. I'll be sure to tag her as well because she's great. And I started going to her. At the time, she was only like 5 minutes from me.
Yeah, she was in Madison Heights.
So started going to her, and then we would see each other sometimes there. But pretty much like social media. And then when you started your latest initiative, because we're going to jump right into it. When you started your latest initiative, I'm like, oh, you need to come tell us about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and just help us out.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Definitely. So that initiative is called Pilates and Public Health. And so basically it was really just an opportunity for me to mix both of my passions. So I have a master's in public health and I enjoy Pilates. And I think just the aspect of realizing that Pilates is not cheap. And I think also acknowledging the privilege that I have to be able to pay for classes. And I think just the aspect of where public health comes into play, where it's like the access to health, and I think just kind of like mitigating that barrier for Black women was something that I was super passionate about.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like thinking about how to incorporate both of those worlds of mine was something that I wanted to do, and that's kind of where that initiative started. And I think just like I kept brainstorming on how to make it bigger because I didn't want it to just be about about Pilates, just in case of like all the women that I interacted with or that saw the initiative were not focused on like Pilates. So also including like a trainer or including meal preps and things like that. So I think just really the initiative itself is focused on access to health for Black women.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but why did you go into public health?
Definitely. So for me, I think like being Nigerian, something that you have 3 careers. You're either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. And when I was 5 years old, my mother told me I was going to be a doctor. So from being 5 until I want to say like my sophomore year of undergrad, I was just on the path of being a doctor. I did all things that you needed to do to be a doctor. You get into the labs, you get into the research and things of that nature. So my sophomore year of undergrad at Wayne State, I was at a lab within the psychiatric department at Wayne State's med school. And so the project that I was focused on was looking at how a single prolonged stress model within a rat model could increase the likelihood of having post-traumatic stress disorder. I know it's a lot. It's a lot. So basically what we did was we put the rats through a lot of stressors. So we put them through forced swim, forced feeding, we just basically traumatized these rats to see if like those single moments would increase a post-traumatic stress disorder type disorder in them. And so I think the way my brain was operating, I was like, a single moment could literally alter someone's entire life forever.
Yeah.
And so I think that was where my focus kind of switched from medicine to prevention, because I think that's the key. If you can prevent someone from being sick, you don't have to focus on treating them. And then also I think spending the summer in the lab with a lot of med students, they all seemed miserable to me, and I was like, that's not the life that I want.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, we need to figure out what we're gonna do. So around that time was when Wayne State also introduced their bachelor's in science for public health. And so that's when I knew I needed to change my major, because I'm like, I'm not going to med school, so let's figure out how we're still going to do medicine in a way to still please my parents.
Yeah. I love that. And just knowing you, like, if you guys follow Sabina already, you are into fitness. Like, you are the health girl, you know, going to your trainer, going to Pilates. Also found the Pilates instructor, Lamira, through you posting her as well. And I went to that. And I went there a couple times and it was really good. So we appreciate you bringing that. And then she hosted a Mother's Day fitness class Yeah, that was very, it was hardcore, but it was perfect. And you had like the tote bags and the shirts and all of that. What was your experience like getting like those sponsors, talking to them? Like, were they just like, oh, I'm all for this? Or was it kind of like you had to like pull a little bit?
So the first event that I had, the first pilot was just Pilates by itself. So that one was the public health, or the Pilates and Public Health. And so originally, once I reached out to Lamira, because I've always taken her classes. So I reached out to Lamira and I kind of like let her know the initiative. And basically what I did was I basically booked out the studio. And so from booking out the studios and I'm looking at the budget, I'm like, that's kind of getting a little expensive. But I think also just thinking about the experience I wanted to give the women, I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how we're also going to include flowers, information, and things like that. And so I was in Trader Joe's one day. I love Trader Joe's. Like, Trader Joe's, if you're looking, sponsor the girl, okay?
I know, that's right.
But I love Trader Joe's, and originally what I wanted to do was, aside from giving out free Pilates classes, I wanted to also give flowers, because I think like women, we love flowers, you know, just kind of like giving people their flowers while they're alive. So I think I wanted to give them flowers as well as an infographic, just having the aspect of like the information on menstrual health and things of that nature. And so when I was in Trader Joe's, I was kind of like doing the math of how much it would cost to get a bouquet for each woman. I'm like, oh, it's just getting a little expensive. So I walked up to the manager and I was like, hey, introduced myself, and I was like, what would it look like to get Trader Joe's to sponsor an event for me? And they were like, what's the event? So I basically gave them a rundown of what the event was, like what the purpose was. And so he was like, that sounds like a really cool idea. I'm not the one over the sponsorships, but what I can do is give you the number to our personnel that's over the sponsorships. If you can convince her, then we can go from there. And so I reached out to the personnel that they gave me her number to. And so she basically was like, create a PowerPoint for me and my team. If you could pitch it to us, if we like you, we'll go from there. Like, okay, cool. So basically I had to create this PowerPoint presentation for her team. And I basically pitched it to a room of 5 people. They loved the idea, and they basically was like, okay, we'll give you $300 worth of flowers. Let us know how you want it, you know, how you want to pick it up and things of that nature. And then the day of the actual event, I actually picked it up the day before the event. So the day before, when I picked up the flowers, she also was like, oh, we can also include smoothies. So
okay,
God was just coming through. So like basically they donated the flowers, donated the smoothies as well. And then my friend, shout out to Austin, he is a graphic designer. He's the one that made the infographics. So basically I pitched, or I created the kind of like the information that I wanted from like a public health aspect, but I'm not the most design tech girly. So basically I gave him my ideas and he turned it into the infographic. And originally we discussed prices, but at the end he was like, I'll do it for free as well. So it was just like, God was just blessing things from there. And so one of the ladies that came to the initial pilot, she was actually the director for Planned Parenthood. And so from there, we kind of like connected. She loved the idea of the initiative, and she was like, let me know if there's any way that I can support you. And so she originally mentioned that Planned Parenthood could sponsor the next one, which was going to be the Mother's Day one. And so basically from that event, they were able to sponsor the next event. And so I was able to have half of the women went to Pilates with Lamira as well. So I basically booked out the studio with Lamira. And then I also connected with Leah. So it was 2 events on the same day, which very hard. 2 different locations. One was in Birmingham and the other was in Farmington. But that's pretty much how those collaborations came about. Literally just shooting my shot. And
also what you said, like the sponsorship for the next one came from that one. I really been like all this year I've been thinking like if you do one thing, the next thing is like going to reveal itself. And then again and then again. But you're not going to know how you're going to get to that point without doing that.
That's what this season is teaching me for sure. For sure. Like I feel like this is a season of transition and just kind of like allowing God to just lead you and not really knowing what's next, but just trusting that there's a step right there. That's been me this season.
And same, because sometimes it's scary, but then at other times it's exciting because it's like, I don't know what I'm walking into, and it's kind of more exciting than like if you knew everything that was going to happen or what you're going to be walking into, because like you kind of expect it. But like when you're in a season of really just surrendering and being open to the possibilities that God has for you.
Wow, it's the surrender. Like
Yeah.
really surrendering your plans and
Yeah.
what you thought your life should look like or what you thought this season should look like. It's like, wow. And I think that's also where excitement, I don't think I'm at excitement yet. Maybe God will allow me to get to excitement soon. But I think with surrender right now, where I'm at is just understanding that all things work out. You know, like I'm not the most excited person right now in the season of my life, but it's like, okay, I know that things are going to work out.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know when.
It's like, but God, you gonna do it.
You gonna do
I don't know how, but you gonna do it. So yes, and honestly, it goes back and forth between excitement and like what's going on.
What's
because
going on?
I feel like people don't really like. We talk about surrender, and I probably do this sometimes too. But it's like it's not always the most fun thing. It's hard to be like, you know what? Let me just surrender whatever else I had, even though it's like I really wanted that.
I really wanted
that.
And I think it's so interesting because you asked me how I ended up in Atlanta in 2018. And originally, Atlanta was never on my vision board, on my places I wanted to go to. And I think it's so interesting because when I was applying to schools, Boston University was somewhere that I thought I wanted to go. And so when I first got my like acceptance to Boston with like not a full acceptance, but it was like a contingency acceptance. And then I was kind of like, okay, why is this not working out how I wanted to work out? Like Boston University. So back in the day, I used to be super into cardiovascular. I wouldn't say I used to be because I still am, but I used to like, my research used to focus on cardiovascular disease. And so Boston University is well known for cardiovascular disease research.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that's where I should be because I'm doing cardiovascular. They're doing cardiovascular as well. And then like Emory ended up coming about, and Emory actually ranks higher than Boston University. And so when I got into Emory, literally I knew that was from God because as soon as I got into Emory, I got a research position with the CDC project. So it's like things were literally falling into place. And that's when I remember like surrendering your plans allow God to really show up and show out. Because I think would I be where I'm at today without being at Emory? Probably not. Probably not. And it's like I probably would have not even liked Boston. Like what was in Boston? I don't know, you know, but yeah.
And then God had better. I love that. So with your initiative, what were some of like your findings or like what are just some of the things you gathered, like whether it's with research or just from your own like perspective of seeing things?
So I think what I gathered the most was just the aspect of why people don't work out or why Black women don't work out. And I think something that always came up was our hair. So I think that was another thing that I included in the grant that I'm currently writing right now, where I want to do a collaboration with hair salons. So it's like I want it to be, I'm in a conversation with a hair salon right now where I want to also give women a way to either wear their hair that can benefit them while they're working out, or actually give them vouchers where it's like, okay, you go work out and then we also pay for you to get your hair done. Because it's like, I think with African American women, it's like, if I just got this silk press, this silk press gotta last me.
Oh my gosh, y'all, I got a silk press before I went to our Mother's Day class. And then it was raining on top of that. It just, I know I work out regardless, but it's like I have to work, especially being postpartum, it's like I have to work out for my mental health. So it's like...
And so that was one of the things I found out where it's like our hair is one reason why we don't work out. Access is just the aspect of like it costs to do these things. Like I looked at like just kind of like the average of what it costs to have a gym membership. Like to get a good gym membership, you're paying $30 at the minimum. And it's like $30 for this. You want me to go to Pilates, which is like $34, $35 each time that I go.
Per class.
Not just for a week.
Right.
Not a bundle. One time that you step your foot on that reformer, you're giving someone $34, $35. So I think just that aspect of just thinking about what else you could do with that money. So I think that was something that I also wanted to eliminate was that barrier of don't nobody want to spend any money on that when they have other things that this economy.
Right.
Today's price is not yesterday's price.
It's not.
Like it really costs.
And not in a good way.
Like it really costs. I think those are my two biggest things where I think a lot of Black women do not work out because of their hair and the aspect of the money.
Yeah. So right now, just from like your public health research in general, what do you think are some things that are harming, or like that maybe we may be doing to ourselves that are harmful for us health-wise?
So I used to help, I'm gonna shout them out, Girl Plus Environment, Diamond. I used to help out with this nonprofit based in Atlanta called Girl Plus Environment. And something that they focused on a lot was the toxins in hair products. So I think that was something that was very intriguing to me, where a lot of Black women, even like with relaxers and things like that, so it's like you have all of these hair products that are being marketed as beneficial, but it's like there's a lot of toxins, environmental toxins, that are actually in these hair products, and it's like you don't even know, because half the times the names on the labels don't make no sense, and it's like who's actually reading that?
Right.
So I think that would be one thing that stands out to me the most.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about when I was like thinking about some things that we can talk about is how sometimes in our 20s, it's like everybody does not think this way, but I feel like enough people think this way for it to be a thing of like, you know, do whatever you want in your 20s, get serious like in your 30s and after. I do feel like that's kind of different for Black women, because it's like we already are up against
A lot.
We are up, so we can't really be doing that. But how do you feel about that, really just in general? I would say health-wise, but just like that theory in itself.
Okay, the way that I see that from a personal level, I don't think I've ever had I could chill right now and worry about it later era feeling. I think I've always been on go. And it's so interesting that I feel like this is the season and God is forcing me to sit down. Like, I think my 20s, my high school, my undergrad years, so like I went to Cass Tech, I graduated 20 out of 500 students. So it's like I've been on go. Like my thought process from high school was I'm going to college for free. Like I had a presidential scholarship at Wayne State. So it's like I never had a moment to rest. And I was talking to one of my friends recently where I think me and God are tussling right now. We are really tussling. And I think in this season, I've been on go for so long where it's funny because my sister gave me this, shout out to Ariel. She gave me this this affirmation book. And the affirmation that I had yesterday was self-care. Like there should be no guilt surrounding self-care. And I think this season God is forcing me to care for myself, which is interesting because I feel like on the exterior, because I'm so into fitness and I'm so into eating healthy and things like that, you can think like, oh, she's very much into self-care. But it's like, no, like I go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning almost every day. And I think it's just the aspect of balancing so much.
Yeah.
And I think in this season, God is stripping so much. Like I used to be the girl where it's like, I'm so busy. Like everyone knows like, oh, she's so busy. And it's like, all the things that I used to be busy with, God is literally taking.
Oh my God.
One by one. So I think the essence of waiting to my 30s was never a thing for me.
Yeah.
But I will say 27, God is like, sit down.
Sit down somewhere.
Yeah. Sit down somewhere.
And I feel like another thing, and it's kind of, motherhood also changed this for me because that's a whole nother level of like, you got to mature quickly. And it's like, the whole like, okay, I want to be so busy. I don't want to be so busy because it's like I need to be present. And it's like I could, but then it's like I have to stop myself. It's a battle also with like, you know, having a child at a younger age of going back and forth of like, oh, I need to do this. Like you said, being on go, having to do the different things, but also like, I got to do that, but I also got to be present because, you know, my child's only going to be this age one time.
Right.
So, but I do realize, and I am still realizing, even sometimes with myself, like I don't want to be busy just to say I'm busy. Like I don't be doing something just to say I'm doing something.
I'm recovering from that. That is, I feel like it's so interesting because I started teaching at Wayne at 25, 26. And on paper, everyone coined it as success. It's like, oh, you're a senior consultant at one of the leading firms for public health. You're also teaching at your alma mater. You're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing this. And it's like, I would go home and say to myself, like, you guys are considering this a success, but I don't. And I think it really, which is why I feel like God is stripping so much from me right now, because it's like, for my measurements of success or my metrics of success, it kind of felt like I was doing things just to do things. I was doing things because it sounded good. Like, it's funny because this is my last semester teaching. Like, I literally told them I don't want to teach again. Like, no more contracts, no more teaching. And my dad was like, I can't believe you're giving that up. But it's like, to y'all, that's success. I don't consider that as success.
Yeah.
And I say that because I feel as if I'm not fulfilled. You know, and I think it shows me my growth, because I think 25-year-old me, when I took that role, it was like, oh my God, like, I'm teaching in my alma mater, and like, I'm in public health, and it's like, it sounds good, but it's like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And now it's redefining, what do you want to do?
Exploring that. So I understand what you mean by surrendering.
Yeah.
Because it's like, now what?
Now what? Now what?
Figuring that out. But I think it's very brave, and also even for you to be transparent saying that now, because I feel like a lot of us sometimes can be stuck in, like, I have to do this because this is people are expecting of me. This is what looks good. You know, I'm just going to keep doing this. But even you being in transition and still having, like, the courage to be transparent, to be like, you know, I'm not fulfilled doing this. I don't know what's next, but, you know, I'm going to try. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to surrender.
Like, this season in my life is so interesting to me, because it's like, imagine giving up everything and not knowing what's next. It's like, I don't know what's next. Like, I'm even considering giving up consulting. Like, I still want public health. And I think the thing is, I don't know when, so like right now with public health consulting, what you do is you come in as a middleman and you're solving organizations' problems. So like the client that I had was the FDA. So like, we're the think banks for those organizations. But it's like, you're more so a jack of all trades rather than a subject matter expert. And it's like, you aren't really mastering anything. You're just a jack of all trades. And I think I miss the aspect of really doing public health. I miss the aspect of really using my brain. And I think that's where a lot of the things, so like even with Wayne, I teach a research methods class. I don't have to use my brain for that. Like, I know how to do research without thinking. And so I think in this next season, what I'm asking God for is more so, I want to be challenged. I feel like for the past 3-4 years in my career, I've been just coasting. I've been on autopilot. I don't think I've actually tried. And it's like, I want to see what trying looks like, which is so scary, because it's like, okay, what if you fail?
Yeah. But you won't.
Yeah.
But you feel like the possibility is there. Wow.
Yeah.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I'm thankful to God that He's allowed me to be in a space where I can give all that up. Like, like, I'm not in a space of desperation. I don't need for anything at the moment. And I think, even like, for an example, a lot of people don't know this, so you're going to be the first to know. So in grad school, I used to do interior design. So like, that was a side hustle. So I actually just, Debo's renovated their restaurant. They're now called Boulevard. I helped with that.
Okay.
So it's like, that's been something that I've been tapping into my passions. Do I want to be an interior designer full time? No. Like, I still love public health. But I think this year, God has really been allowing me to just like do things without looking for a check. Because I think a lot of the times as humans, we can be desperate for money, and I think out of desperation you do things just for the money. And I want to be thankful to God to have gotten me into a place where it's like, I don't know how long it's gonna last, because you know, money don't last forever. But I am in a space where I feel as if like I can really sit and think and figure out what it is I want next. And
another thing that, like, you exploring your passions, and thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's where more fulfillment comes from as well. I think in this society, because we have to work, you know, to make money, to do the things. Nothing's free.
It costs to breathe.
It costs to go outside.
Yes.
So tapping into our passions and like having, and that's why I've been posting about like doing tennis. I just posted about my sister's book club, but things like that. Just doing the different things, because we also can't be like, okay, just career wise. And sometimes another thing, like transparent, I have to stop myself of like, okay, yes, I'm, trying to further my career and do the thing, but it's also like, okay, let me make sure I'm doing other things. Because I don't want to look around and then it's like I've, pushed this up and up and up. But then what about everything else? Like, what about my relationships? What about, my hobbies I do outside of this? Because if that go wrong, then it's like, oh, where's my worth? Right. Because you put it into somebody else's hands.
No, literally. I think it's so interesting. At the end of last year, my dad was like, you've done everything that because I like, in my dad's eyes, I think my dad is one of my biggest supporters. I feel like my dad is super proud of like where I'm at in my career. And like for the first time he asked me like, what about your love life? And I was like, wait.
Hold on.
And I think it's interesting that my dad asked that, because like as a Nigerian father, I feel like Nigerians are so interesting, because it's like you tell your children to go to school. And then it's like once they get out of school, it's like, where's your husband? But it's like, when did I have time for that? You told me to go to school my entire life. So